Today's Tall Toby is 260701 is the rocket Firework. Now this part has 3 different colors applied to it, and I thought that offered a great opportunity to demonstrate something a little different in Creo today. So we're going to do some bodies. We're going to create 3 different bodies and then use those to apply the colors. It's also going to give us an opportunity to do some revolves in 2 different ways. We're going to do the first one as sketch regions, and then we're going to do the second one just as a straight revolve and demonstrate some differences when you do that. So I've updated my starting sequence here. So we'll do Tall Toby 260701. And I do like to add the common name if I have a chance. I'm not using the default template. I've got my millimeter template stored here. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and reveal and get started with a sketch on the front plane. Because this is a revolve, I do want to include an axis of rotation, but because we're gonna do this as sketch regions, we can do things a little bit different than we would if we were doing a feature revolve. So my first dimension is my overall height, which will be 250. The height of my rectangular section here is 200. Another key dimension is my diameter, which is 34. Now, sometimes I can take dimensions and I can transfer them into be from a radius to a diameter, but it doesn't do that here. This is the length of a line. You can see it's highlighting the line. So instead, if I dimension the outer line to the center line and middle click, that dimension I can switch into a diameter. So if you really want to show the diameter and not just the radius of that tube, is doable. You just can't modify it from the line. The last dimension I need up here is the angle, and that's going to be 50 divided by 2. So that one's not as easy to set up, but 50 divided by 2 is that angle. Okay, so that's just a sketch. I'm going to change my filter down here to be sketch region. The alternate option there is to do Shift S, and that'll switch to sketch region. My top geometry, I'm going to revolve around the center of the cone. And then the second region, I'm going to revolve also around the center of the cone. But this one's going to be a new body. So I use this body option so that I can create them as separate bodies. And what that allows me to do is shell just the cone. So we're going to apply a shell to body 1. We're going to give it a wall thickness of 3. And that's applying the shell just up here to the cone, not to both. I could say all if I want it to go to everything, but we're going to stick with just body 1. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is revolve the inside of this part. Now this time we are building the revolve directly inside, or the sketch inside the revolve. So that means we need to pay a little more attention. We need a line that is continuous on the center line. Don't want that midpoint, so I'm going to go right, and that'll kind of break that constraint. And I said right, I meant right click. I'm going to come in, roll down, then come over here, middle click to finish. Okay. My lower diameter is 25. Let's see here. This height is 60. This internal diameter is 7. Now, previously, I kind of had to tell it that I needed a diameter. I don't do that this time because I did the sketch inside revolve, and I did the axis of revolution. This is the datum center line. So I don't need those pieces of information, or I don't need to force it to give a diameter. It'll do that for me. Okay. So one long continuous line on top of an axis of revolution. I've got a single closed loop, and we are ready to go. It's going to remove material by default because it's completely internal to the shape. Okay, the last part is probably the toughest part of the sketch, and that is these fins at the bottom. I'm going to start with a datum or a construction center line down here. And I want to dimension it up to this point, but it's not letting me kind of reference that point. If I hold down Alt, I can select that line. I want it to be a reference. And there we go. Okay. So now I should be able to dimension from that point to my center line and get the overall height of 300. Okay. And the next thing I want to do, let's see how this goes. We're going to go an arc over here. I don't want anything special with these. I don't want them to be touching. I don't want it to be the same. I don't want it, yeah, stuff like that. I want it kind of oddly loose. I got a lot of dimensions to add on here. So we're going to make this 6. We're going to make this 33. Make this 130. Make this 150. Okay. All right. So we're going to get out of our dimension tool. We're just in select. Let's see. I want to bring this closer to that. And let's see if we can make this do what we need. There we go. So this radius should be 3. We want this to be tangent. Okay, 2 more things we need to do. Make this arc tangent to the bottom. Okay, and we got 1 more dimension showing up there. We're going to dimension the outside of this arc to the center line. And this is going to be 126, which is our max width, divided by 2. Okay, there we go. Okay, finishing this up, we got these open loops up here. If I were to just connect this with a line and extrude it, I'm going to have this gap up here. Even if it's not that wide, even if it's shallow in here, which it will be, it'll be 3.5, and it's going to be symmetric, we're still going to have that gap in there. So that's not what we need. So we're going to go back in and edit. And I'm going to take advantage of this clip model option, which I really like. And we're going to bring this in. Now I am going to see a little bit of that top. So what I'm going to do is take this arc. I'm going to keep it going tangent, I think. Oh, it's coming out. Okay. Let's hit escape for a second. Let's delete this line. Try that again. I want it to come out tangent. Go. That X, if you come straight out, it'll give you that tangent option. If you go perpendicular to the end of your arc, it won't be. I've got a couple of dimensions showing up here. I'm just going to make them equal. I'm going to make this radius match that one. I don't really need, I don't need a lot of fin, but you can kind of see like this will go right into the center. Now this won't interfere with the center because the center pulls around. So there we go. Now if I was just working on a part, I didn't care about the colors, I could just leave this as attached to the rocket, but I'm going to create this as a new body. And that's going to do a couple of things. You'll see that we've actually got some overlap happening now. Okay. Another trick for understanding what's happening there is when you have shaded with edges turned on, you can see all of these edges, but there's no edge showing up here, and that is because there's overlap. they're interfering. So yeah, let's do a few things. Let's take our extrude and let's pattern it. Okay, this is going to be an axial pattern around the center line. And we'll do angular extent with 6 of those. And those all become body 3. So let's jump right into the color. We're going to make the top blue. And there is a blue, but it's not the only blue. If you search, you'll find some other options. And normally we're going to apply color to surfaces or to parts. But in this case, we want to use the filter to apply the color to the entire body. So if I were to chop off the top, I'd still see blue exposed on the inside. And then we can add white. And we also have the option to right-click until the body is selected. So you can either cycle through options with your right mouse cycle option, or this one will be easier to use the filter. Okay, come down here, change it to body, select body 3, and there we go. Hide that sketch. So you can see as I zoom in here that the red and the white kind of have some overlap. The white is still, like, there's this little line of red where it's tangent, but the white would still be on the inside. And what we can do is we can use a Boolean option. Okay? And we're going to subtract. So the body we're going to modify is body 3, and we're going to modify it based on body 2, but we're going to keep the body. So we're not going to get rid of body 2. And this is going to clean it up so it's clear on the inside. We don't have overlapping bodies. And let's see how we did. All right. Awesome. So you can see that made, if I hide this body 3, right, that we're still flat on the outside here. Perhaps a more interesting method might be changing that body subtract and switching these around. So let's say body, the body to modify it is body 2. We modify body 2 based on body 3. We keep bodies, right? What happens then, especially if I go hide body 3, is you've got all of these little slots in here where those fins would fit into if you wanted to make the fins bigger and have them extend into that rocket shape. So that's an alternate version. But the way to make it the right value, body to modify body 3, modifying bodies body 2, for this particular challenge is that the cylinder stays the way, or honestly, the answer would be the same. As long as we don't have overlapping bodies, duplicated bodies, the geometry would be the same. So let's prove that by having duplicated bodies. Let's see. Yep. We would have 182.6 by the fact that we have body 3 that extends into the rocket, and we have body 2 which extends into the fins. We do double some of that material by either removing the fins from the body or the body from the fins. We end up with the proper mass. So anyway, I hope you appreciated going through some of Creo quirks on this great challenge, looking at sketch regions for revolves, looking at some interesting arc geometry, extruding relative to a cylinder edge, and using some of those body options before applying those colors to this particular part. Anyway, drop a comment if you have any questions. Until next time, stay quirky.